Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of work.
Oh, don't tell him that.
Jake, you should be paid more.
I agree. Might be paid more.
Yeah. So you have rental properties, right?
Yep.
General contractor, and you're doing flips.
Yeah. So.
So let's. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
just let's get into the show.
Yep.
Yeah,
Go for it.
You're gonna say something good, and then we're gonna start, and it won't sound as good. It happens to us all the time. I don't mean to
All
cut
right.
you off, Troy.
No,
I
go
just
for it.
I just got to put a little. We put a disclaimer up real quick.
Mm.
Jake, I'm just gonna show the disclaimer. I'm not playing that one piece anymore.
Okay.
Is that fine?
That's fine.
We'll put up for 5 seconds and get right into the show. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the Mike and Jake Show. I'm Mike Bazzadona. We're here with Jake Arnold, and our guest speaker today is Troy Good. How are you doing, Troy?
I'm doing great. Doing great. How about you guys?
Very good. It's just, today's the first day of the heat wave, so I'm kind of glad we're in.
It's good, Mike. You're not wearing anything dark that is going to make you extra hot when you get outside.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm pretty smart like that. Yep, and I'm gonna wear dark pants and dark boots, and
yeah.
I'm gonna fry.
How hot is it supposed to be today?
Like 105.
Yeah.
Well, the heat index, right? Yeah.
Is that what it is? Really?
Yeah. And then when you're on a job site, there's nothing but dirt and cement. I'm gonna bake.
Wait, Mike, are you going to be on the job site all day? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, I'm going there.
Wow. You're not going to just sit in your air-conditioned truck?
No, I never do that.
Oh.
I'm not that guy.
Oh, okay.
You know who is? My son is.
I'm
looking for him. I'm like, where the hell do you? Oh, he's in the truck, boss. In the truck?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's like, I'm tired, Dad. Yeah, so welcome to our show. Troy, why don't you just explain, who you are, what you do. We know you're a general contractor. You're also an investor. You've done a meetup for me before, done another podcast with you before. You're all over social media. I always watch you on Instagram.
Okay.
And it's awesome. But you tell us your story real quick.
All right. So I started my construction business in 1991. So I think that's like 33 years, something like that. And my oldest son, Brandon Good, he runs the business pretty much now. That's where we're at. And he's on the job sweating right now. So he does a great job. He honestly takes a lot off my shoulders. So that's what that's what I've been doing. That's been the bread and butter for years. Back in the late 90s, I started buying real estate. I bought about 25 units over a few years. Had no idea what I was doing, none whatsoever. Bought on market stuff through a realtor. I got my start because the first guy I bought a place from, owner financed it. I paid $83,000. It was worth $130,000. I had no money. I had a credit line of $10,000 for my business, and that's what I gave him down, and then got it, refinanced and stuff about 2 years later. But I got out of it. I sold everything in 2005 and 6 because I had 5 young kids. My wife was involved at that point. She hated it. So I was like, not worth it, and I was doing everything. I was the maintenance man. I was a bookkeeper, everything. People would say, well, I don't see how you're doing it all. I'm like, I'm not. Like, there's things that are suffering. It may look good from the outside, but I'm not getting it. I'm not. So I sold everything, made me look like a genius when 2008 came. But,
absolutely.
It was, we cash flowed some, but the real money came when we sold them. So that was, we benefited from that, and having 5 young kids, it was great. Stayed out of it for several years, and I didn't own any in the city at that point in Reading, and a couple other investors were like, you got to get, buy these properties in the city. I was like, no thanks. But then I thought, all right, I'm going to investigate. So I joined a RIA group and went once a month for probably a year at least before I bought anything. And then I bought one property. Then I bought another property 2 years. Like I bought one in 2010, one in 2012. And I was pretty content with that was it, And then 2018 or 19 came along, and I mistakenly or unknowingly went to an REI meeting that was at a home center. And I thought it was like an open house. And I'm like, what? All these people know each other here. And that's when I got introduced to the REI world. And through April Crossley, it was her group. And started talking with her and the other investors there, and thought, maybe I'm going to get get back into this. My kids are older and stuff. I have more time. So I thought, all right, maybe I'll buy another couple places. And fast forward the next whatever, what are we in 25? So 6, 7 years after that, I've probably bought maybe 80 properties somewhere around there. Flipped some of them, kept a bunch. I have about 25 of my own, and then I own some with another partner up in Schuylkill County. We have a flip business and buy and hold business in Schuylkill County. And then my two oldest boys and I started a good family investor group, and currently have about 15 properties, and we're doing our first flip. So, and then I flip with a handful, three, four, five other investors, and so I partner on a lot of different stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Really focusing on the real estate part of it, um, and kind of sharpening the pencil on the managing of the rentals because I self manage. I have a really good bookkeeper who does a lot of that too. But really sharpening the pencil on the management part and trying to focus more and more on the real estate part, less and less on the construction part. So that's
Okay.
where I'm at.
So the boys are actually doing the construction part.
Well, my oldest son currently runs the construction part. My other son, he doesn't work with us at the moment, but we have an investment company together where we buy properties and rent them out. We've flipped one. We kept most of them, all through Schuylkill County, all over from uh, Ringtown to Tamaqua to Ashland, Pottsville, Palo Alto, and some other places. Schuylkill Haven.
So let me ask you that investment company. What is the investment company? You have people that invest in you, and you take them. They pool their
No,
money, or it's just you. It's just you and
no,
your.
it's just it's a LLC. What happened was the middle son. I have five kids, three boys. The middle son, Jacob, started getting an interest in real estate, and so then he said to Brandon, "Hey, why don't you come over? I want to watch this webinar with I think it was Chris Crone. Is that his name? He's a guru."
I don't know that one. I don't know him.
Um, anyway, after that, they were like, "We should buy properties," and then one of them was like, "We should get Dad involved. Maybe ask Dad about this since he's already doing it. Maybe I don't know." Anyway, the three of us started meeting once a week on Monday morning to just talk about potentially doing this. So that was 3 years ago. So every Monday morning at 6 a.m., the three of us meet for breakfast and talk about it, and then pray about it, and just discuss how we're going to do things, and just manage it that way. So from a father's perspective, it's great for me because I get
Sure.
to be in business with my boys, and every Monday see them for breakfast too, and
Yeah,
um, yeah. So
that's awesome. So, Troy, you've been in the business for 34 years then, right?
pretty much, yep. I mean,
And
I bought my first piece of real estate in '96, and then we didn't move in it. I was renting at that point. It was a two half doubles on 3 acres, but I never moved into those. We just rented them out, and then we didn't buy the house I live in. I bought at auction in 1998, and I'm still there.
okay. And that first one you bought, you said was owner financing, right?
Yep.
So that's funny because you're like the fifth guest we've had on where their first deal was
Mm.
owner
Is it?
finance.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It,
really
it's
weird.
almost it's almost the line everyone says to us. Because Jake
Yeah,
will say, "What was your first deal?" Well, someone owner financed me a piece of land, and
Wow. It's a great way to get started. I mean, the bottom line is you have to get that equity snowball going, and if you can do that initially when you buy, some people buy and they buy at market value or even they'll pay a little more, and you can still. I mean, you guys know in real
yeah,
estate you can do everything wrong and still if you stay in it, you can be successful. But man, if you can buy something for 83 that's next day is worth 130, it really helped.
yeah,
yeah,
When I was looking at that property, it was this old guy who lived there his whole life. He was born in the house. And all I could think about the whole time I'm looking at it is, where's this guy going to move if I buy this place? Like, why is he selling this? And I said to him, I'm like, Paul, what are you going to do if I buy this? And he goes, I don't know. I just can't take care of it anymore. And so that night, the realtor called me, like they all do, and said, "Oh, we're getting three more offers. If you want this, you're going to have to put an offer in." And I was very new. Again, I didn't own anything else, and I wasn't about making quick decisions. So, and I said to her, I said, "Well, you might think this is weird, but if I'm supposed to have this property, doesn't matter how many offers come in, I'm going to get it." And she kind of got quiet, probably laughed. I don't care. But 3 days later, she called me back and she said, "Well, we sat down at Paul's kitchen table with three offers, and he looked at me and said, 'I want to sell it to Troy.'" And she said, "Troy didn't give us an offer." And he's like, "I don't care. I want to sell it to Troy." So that's how it worked out. And I said, "Well, he needed 10 grand down to pay off some bills or whatever." And he owner financed it for 2 years, which I think a lot of people underestimate the value of. They're scared to offer that the owner finance because they
Yep.
think it's a bad deal. It's a great deal for a lot of people. So and for people in his situation who was 80, like he didn't know how long could he owner finance. So give me 2 years because I'll get the other one rented out. We'll be bringing in money. I'll be able to refinance it. So 2 years later, I was buying a 4 unit and refinancing this one at the same time. And again, I put 10 grand from my um, business line of credit to buy it, but really no money out of pocket. And then I was borrowing some more money to buy this 4 unit and refinance in this place. And I only had to come out of my pocket $250.
Wow.
Yep. And I didn't even know what I was doing. No clue. I just knew that this was the only way it was going to work for me. And that's what I told him, made him the offer, and he took it. So yeah. So that's how I got started.
So you started investing in real estate before you actually became a general contractor then?
No, I started general contracting when I was in 91.
Right.
Okay.
Real estate, the first place I bought was 96. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So you
Yeah.
already knew how to talk to people and stuff like that. That you were able to build rapport with this seller. A lot of people will like send a DM to me when I have a property for sale on Facebook or something, and they're like, "Do you do owner financing?" And without talking to me or anything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, wrong move.
Yeah.
So you built a lot of rapport with the seller. He trusted you. He knew you were a good guy, and even though you didn't make an offer, he still wanted to sell to you.
Yeah, and Jake, I've always been confused or baffled during this whole recent time in real estate where I've watched all these ups and downs, and through every single one, people complaining they can't find deals, and I trip over them every single day. It's like, and people are like, "How do you find your deals?" I'm like, I don't know. They're just, but it's networking, right? I've been called a serial networker. I network with a lot of people. When I decided to buy in Schuylkill, it came because I had no interest in Schuylkill County, none whatsoever. And the boys and I were just starting this company, and I saw an ad on Facebook from a realtor who I knew, who was kind of starting too, and it had this place in Shenandoah. Now, would I buy another place in Shenandoah? Probably not, but it was 16 grand for a 2 unit.
Yeah.
We bring in 2 grand a month for that. Like, now we
Yeah.
put like 50 into it, but that's kind of what got me started. And I quickly realized, especially in the Pottsville area, there was not an REI group. So I just started one. And then we took over. April she had started a Facebook group, but really didn't do much with it. Had 100 people in. So Don Schwartz and I kind of teamed up and took that over. And so within the first year of being up there, we bought 14 properties. Like, so don't tell me you can't network, and don't tell me it takes forever to do it. If you dive into it and really start connecting with people and tell them what you want. My youngest son moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and when I was moving him down there, I thought, hey, I may as well see if I can connect with real estate people down there. Because if he's going to stay down here, maybe I should buy some stuff so I have an excuse to come down. So, with 2 weeks before I went down, I started joining all the Facebook groups. I put a picture in and said, "Hey, I'm an investor from PA. I'm coming down. I want to connect." So all the wholesalers reached out to me. I connected with one. Then I thought, oh, we should have an REI meeting while I'm there, and I'll be the speaker. So we organized that through some people there. I got there. We had like 40 people there. I instantly connected with all these people. And then somebody else from Nashville heard about it and asked me if I could speak at their meeting. I said, well, if you can schedule one for Saturday afternoon or evening on my way back home, I'll stop by and speak. So I connected there. So I've just been really good at connecting with people, and I had some good mentors in business early on. This one guy, Harold Gresh, was like a master at dealing with people, and like that skill of being, what's the word? You ever? This is something I learned last year about emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And somebody told me, because I meet with these guys in Emmaus, like 5 other guys, and they're all like super smart and way ahead of me in business and stuff. And I always tell them I feel so stupid. And the one guy said, "Yeah, but your emotional intelligence is off the charts." So that's kind of where
Yeah.
I excel. And I think it comes out of, I genuinely love people. I love hearing people's stories. I love connecting with people, and I love helping people too. I love seeing people succeed, like close to me and people that I have influence on. So yeah.
Troy, you've been around for a bit. What do you think prevents people from like networking and doing the things that you've been so successful at?
Um, well, they're scared, right? Like there's lots of times, and I don't go to as many meetups anymore. Just the phase I'm in at the moment. I do have R1 in Schuylkill I run with Don, but I remember like when I'd plan on going to one because I'm like, oh, I'm excited to go and I want to go. And then it comes down to that night, I'm like, I don't feel like it. Um, Now, I think most people, a lot of people have a fear of going to a networking meeting where they're going to meet new people. And when I was younger, I was quiet and shy. And because of all the interactions and being in business, you can't be in business and be quiet and shy. Like, you're not going to succeed. So, um, just years of that doesn't, I'm not shy and I'm not like timid when it comes to that. But I think a lot of people, that's scary to them. Talking to young people with like that have young kids, it's very difficult for them to get out,
Yeah.
and a lot of it is just getting started. And I think they think of networking as a place you go hand out cards and sell yourself instead of
Yeah.
meeting people and
They don't realize how they I meet everybody. I met you, I met Jake.
mhm,
I love networking, but
yeah,
I was just talking to somebody the other day. They said they went to a meetup, and what scared them is they said, "Okay, everyone, we're gonna go around the room. You're gonna stand up and say
right,
what you do and you knew." And people don't like that.
yeah,
Some people
mhm,
like it. It's hard, especially if you're a newbie.
yeah,
What am I gonna say?
yeah.
And this guy was a newbie, and I told him to go to a meetup. So he goes to the meetup, and he goes, "You embarrassed me." I didn't embarrass you. I told you what to say if they did that. I prepared
Yeah.
him. Just say, "Hey, I'm new to the business. I really don't know what I'm doing. I was looking into wholesaling, rentals, flips,
Mhm.
whatever, and I like just learn."
And
And
Mike, if you're not willing to do that,
yeah,
don't complain.
that's
You
what I
have to
said.
be willing to do it. You've got to say, if this is the game I want to play, these are the parts I have to play in the game.
And you have to
And
surround yourself with these people.
yes, and I don't like typical meetups. Like when Don and I started one, I said I'll do this, but I don't want it to be. I want it to be random. I want it to be different place every month, different format. We do them breakfast, lunch, dinner. Sometimes we have a speaker. A lot of times we don't, and because I get bored and I don't want to be a ball and chain.
Yeah.
So, and I think the best ones are our lunch ones, where people come and we just talk, sit around the table and talk because it's all about, for me it's all about the connections. I can learn all this other stuff any day on YouTube or whatever, like, but the connection part is how I've made a living, and that's where I've made my best deals, connecting with people.
But it networks, right?
Yeah, yep,
Yeah, me too. I mean, it just opens so many doors
yes, yeah,
all the time. That's actually how before that I wasn't flipping. I was just wholesaling. I had a rental property, and I wasn't even doing wholesale right.
mm,
And
mhm.
then once I started networking with people, I started building up my team. Then I met my other partner that I do the modulars with, and it's helped me out. I wouldn't be here.
If you have the attitude that I can learn something from everyone, even people I don't like, even people I might despise, you can still learn stuff from them.
Yep.
Like, so everybody is as a chance, is a way that you can learn, and now that I'm older, I realize a lot of my value, so to speak, is through encouraging other people and just the experience that I've had. So not in actually things I physically can do for them, but a lot of value is in what I've accumulated up here, and
Sure, same
you
with
know,
me. I love giving advice to the younger people.
yeah,
I could here's a way to save $50,000 because I
right,
lost 50 grand doing this,
yeah,
and
and you
and
can and you tell them, hey, do this, don't do this, and if they choose to do it, then
yeah, hey, you'll pay like I did.
yeah. Like I always tell the story of my youngest son Zach. He was 4, and we got this was when the glass top stoves were coming out. So he
Mhm.
was used to seeing the coils, and I was standing there, and he said, "Dad, is that hot?" I said, "Yeah, it's hot. Don't touch it." He goes, "No, it's not." I said, "Then go ahead and touch it." And he looked at me. I said, "I'm telling you, if you touch it, you're going to burn your hand. But if you want to touch it, go for it." And I said, "But I'm telling you, it's hot." I turned away. I turned back around. He had touched it. It was a bad move. My wife didn't know about it. His whole hand blistered up. It was really hot, but he had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And I said,
Especially
"What?"
when it's your own kids. They don't whatever you say, I could tell them something, and then Jake would tell them something. They're not gonna
Right,
listen to me. They'll be like, "Yo, Jake, you know what Dad, you know what Jake told me?" Like, the
right,
same thing I told you 4 months ago.
yeah, just didn't listen.
Yeah, they
So
don't wanna hear from us.
I told my wife. I said, because she was upset at me that I told him to do that. I said, "Well, let's look at this. If this is how he's going to learn lessons, he's going to have a long, he's going to have a hard. You know what they say? If you're going to be, if you're going to be dumb, you better be strong, or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gotta be tough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
get very tough. Yeah,
yeah. Well, it sounds like people need to get out of their comfort zone a little bit,
for
and
sure. Yeah,
honestly, if you're not leaving your comfort zone, it's more risky to just stay in the same lane that you're always in,
yeah,
because
right.
you're whether it's just working a job or whatever you're doing, getting more of those skills and knowledge and filling in some of those gaps, those knowledge gaps. I mean, you got to do it. You got
Yeah.
to do it. So it's like people complacency is the killer, right? That's like another saying, I think.
Mhm.
So what have you learned most from like having hosting your own meetup? Because it sounds like you've like cycled a couple times. You bought a bunch of properties in the '90s, you sold those, and then you've bought more,
Yeah,
and you've repositioned the portfolio multiple times. So what have you learned like throughout that process? I guess is a better question. That like what do you want to hold versus what don't you want to hold? Because I'm sure you had some properties where you're like, I don't like this property.
right. So in the beginning, first of all, I bought everything on market at the time because there were deals on market. I don't know. Maybe there was better deals off market.
I don't even know if there was really wholesalers back then either.
I don't know. Um, so there, I didn't buy in any bad areas, and I bought. It was lower cash flow, but um, better appreciation, right? So the second time around, I started buying in Reading, which was higher cash flow, but at the time no appreciation.
Appreciation.
I did not expect appreciation at all, and then all of a sudden it came.
Yeah,
Um, so the strategy was definitely different, and so then what I was doing was um, I used private money for everything, everything. I mean, I probably don't have more than 10 grand out of my pocket on the 70, 80 properties we bought. Like I used private, but again, I'm buying with a lot of equity. And the reason private lenders would loan that all to me is because I've been in business a long time. I'm a contractor. That's huge if you're a private money lender, loaning money to. I always thought it was amazing that they would loan money to some guy who worked at a 9 to 5 job that has no experience like that. I was like, you're crazy.
yeah,
Um, so and then so once I started doing it, more and more. But the what changed this time around, I was buying some and flipping them, or keeping them for a year, then selling them, and kind of keeping the cash flow moving that way, and accumulating more. Then when the appreciation started happening in Reading, I was like, oh wow, I think I should keep these. So I started keeping everything,
yeah,
and that was good. It added a level of stress because again, I kept finding more properties, and they needed lots of work and turnover and stuff. So that changed for sure. And then reaching out into different markets. I forgot what question you asked, Jake, but I'm
Well, just like, have you identified any? I would imagine your buy box changed a little bit
the
too.
buy box. Okay, yeah. So, all right. So now, like, I went through a phase where I was like, I would buy any deal I would buy that made sense. Like, if I could make money on it, I flipped trailers. I bought a trailer for 6 grand, put 9 into it, sold it for 25. And another investor said to me, Troy, why are you buying a trailer? I said, well, why not? He goes, it's a trailer. I said, I don't care if it's an old chicken coop. If I can buy it and resell it and make money, I'm going to do it. So I was buying anything then that made sense to make money, and so I was building fast. But I was really super busy, like,
Yeah.
and so now I'm in a phase where I'm like, all right, I'm going to sell off some of these ones that are kind of more of a pain, and they're in sections of the city that, like, it's block by block. I mean, some people say, oh, I would never buy on Cotton Street or on the South Side or whatever, but there's pockets there that are good. So some of it depends on the location, some of it depends on the actual property. I like I like in the city. I like 2 bedrooms because it's not as big a family typically that moves in, but
Hmm.
also the bigger ones get a lot more money too. So um, now I'm really in a phase where I'm like, I'm going to sell off a few of them to pay off some other ones and just get in a better. I mean, I probably am still at a loan to value of probably maybe 40% or something. I'm still low, but I still want to get them even lower and kind of make
Ca- Cash flow
like,
more.
yeah, like the idea of saying instead of having 30 properties, get down to maybe 20, but I'll have a lot less debt and I'll make the same amount of money. Now, I'm not making the equity as if I had 30. I understand that, but I'll also have 10 less tenants to deal with. So
And it's
that's,
risk free because
yes,
there's no debt.
there's a value. Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things I don't think people understand is the different levels when you go from like one rental to 5 to 10. And, once you get to past 10, 15, 20, things can spiral pretty quick out of control. And I don't know that. And if you don't have a business mind, it even is even more difficult,
Sure.
you know?
And you're a contractor, so you own your own company. You could
Right.
fix anything that breaks.
That has been a real help. It's a help and a hindrance. Like,
Yeah.
it has
That's
affected because it's nice to be able to throw our guys in to finish something, right? Or to do something. But I've really tried to use a lot of our flips and stuff that we do or renovations. I try and sub it out um, because that has taken our guys off the construction, which we're trying to put that back as a main focus to just do roofing, windows, and decks is what we want to do. Um,
You don't want to do inside.
No, we don't do any kit. We don't do any. I mean, we do it for some of our own flips and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and I sub it out a lot. So sometimes it's confusing to people because they're like, "Oh, well, I see you did a kitchen." I'm like, "Yeah, that's for one of ours, but for our
For yourself.
contracting,
Yeah.
right? For our contracting business, we don't do that."
So Troy, would you suggest like people that are flipping, would you suggest them to build their own construction company or just keep subbing things out? What do you think about that?
Hmm. It depends on the individual. So it's see our construction company. Then like so, I have a rental company called Good Rents. So our construction, like so, where my property I'm in now, it's a old farmhouse we fixed up. Then it's this 3-car garage with this my office and a second floor. So my rental company owns the property. My construction company rents the space from Good Rents.
Sure.
So that anytime you can kind of do that kind of thing to put offset income that is taxed higher into a lower tax bracket, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But to actually start your own construction company, depending on the person, definitely not a bad idea. Kind of like starting your own property management company if you have enough people, it makes sense. Um, I was if it's somebody already kind of in construction type businesses and they're geared that way, or they have a business mind. Yes, but owning a construction company, if you're going to have employees and stuff like that, it's a lot. So yeah,
All right.
it would depend, Jake. To answer your question, it really depends on the individual. But in some, it's worked out and has helped us a tremendous amount.
And the problem, a lot of investors don't even know how to deal with contractors, right? Like,
Totally.
what are some of the red flags investors should watch out for when hiring a contractor?
It's funny because you know how you can in the rental business you can have a list of, hey, I'm supposed to do everything like this, and then you catch yourself like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Right. So, but with the, I think it's one of the areas that most people getting into investing underestimate big time. Like
Yep. I
dealing
don't
with the contractors is huge. Like we were talking about before we started, Mike. It's the difference between success and failure for sure.
Yep.
But some of the red flags are if they're not insured, red flag. If you're
Yep.
talking to them and you just get a bad feel, out. If they won't give you a contract, no. If they give you a contract and it's very vague, that's not good. Now there's some contractors I deal with who, because most of your contractors are not business types. They're people who are good at a trade and decide they go in business.
Yes, and we've discussed about that before on a last
Right,
podcast, and that's true. That's they're good at what they do.
right.
They're not good on the back end.
So
If
some of them, if you can, if you can recognize that, hey, they're good people, they're a good person, they're good at what they do. They're just not great at business. I've already written contracts for my contractors and
Yeah.
said, sign this, like read it. And then I had one come back and they were complaining because about something. I'm like, it's in the contract. They said, well, I didn't read it. Are you kidding me? You didn't even want to write it. I wrote it for you and then you didn't read it. I mean, but so that's a red flag if they don't want to have a contract. Uh, Again, it also depends on the size of the job. If
Sure.
it's you having somebody come in and do a 1 day job, there's flexibility there. But not having a contract, if they're not in business that long, always check referrals. Sometimes that even burns you. I had one recently that I got as a referral, and they were happy with them. Well, so I got them, and it didn't work out. And then I messaged them. I'm like, I thought you said this guy was good. Oh yeah, he screwed me over. I'm like, okay, well, it would have been nice to know that. Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't trust people when I call them either.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because they're like, "Ah, he's out of my hands." Yeah, good luck, Troy.
yeah. So, but I mean, that's if you check him out somewhat, and so one of the things I do is start somebody new out, kind of slow. Like I'll give them a small job to see how that goes, and
Mhm.
um, but you also can't with contractors. They could be good for the first project, second project, and then they go bad real fast. So you constantly have to be vigilant about that, and watch and kind of be looking for that. Red flags, like I think if they don't keep you updated, the communication part, and I can't, I'm not the best all the time at the communication part, but I think setting the expectation beforehand when you're talking to them
Yeah.
about, hey, I want weekly updates. How long will this take? And if when you're talking to them about that, if they're like kind of like, yeah, yeah, I don't really, you could tell they don't like it. Move on to somebody else. But it's tough because it's hard finding them. I mean, Jake, you do quite a bit of flipping, or
Yeah.
Jake, that's all.
okay,
How many you flipping now, Jake?
Like we've done like 15 this year. So,
okay, yeah. So yeah, you're dealing with this all the time. Like,
but trusting your gut is one of the things I heard. Like
mm-hmm.
when you're, I mean, you start to get to a point where you can kind of tell if someone's full of shit or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like trusting your gut and yeah, I
Yeah,
don't recommend anybody. I don't take any recommendations. I just trial and error.
yeah. And when you're meeting with somebody, like I always tell people, finding the contractor, if you look at it as like you're date in the dating game, and like you have a conversation with them, then you meet them, and it's like you're getting a bad feel from this person. You just gotta cut them loose. 'Cause some people are you'll get a bad feel from, but they're really good salesmen,
Yep.
Yeah.
and they can try and sell you. So
At
Yeah.
the end of the day, you can't be afraid to hurt someone's feelings either,
yeah,
because,
for
like,
sure.
I mean, if you're gonna lose a bunch of money, like that person's not gonna be there to
Yeah,
feed your family, right? Like
right.
after
Yeah.
you lose money. So
And once you flipped enough, you know what things cost. So we just had a guy come in. We were going to sub something out, and he said, "What? How much for the bathroom?" He's like, "Oh, 2,500." Meanwhile, I have 8,000 in my head. I know what I got to do. And I'm thinking, man, my partner's like, no way, he failed already. He said,
Yeah, right,
just
because he's
because,
way off.
yeah, he's way off. You know what I mean? Maybe it cost us 5 grand, but 2,000. He's gonna gut this whole bathroom, tile everything, tile shower. Uh, I go, dude,
And you know how that's going to work out,
I
right?
know how that's gonna work. That's why he's done. All right, we're
Yeah,
not. Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jake, back to what you're saying about not being able to, not worrying about offending someone. So I was dealing with another investor, and they were talking about this issue they're having with their contractor. And when I got to the bottom of it, I'm like, I can't tell you all the details, but I said to him, I said, listen, you've got to, I know this guy's your friend, but you can't approach it like that. And the kind of, I said, you got to I got to have a talk with him and just sit down and say, listen, this is where we're at. And I think when you come across as, look, I'm trying to solve this problem with you.
Mhm.
So we got to work to figure this out, but I'm really having a hard time. You got to get this thing done. You said it was going to take this long. It's not. It's taking longer, and I'm losing money. And I feel like you just got to lay it out there in a nice way and just say, how do we solve this? And maybe it's not going to end well, but you have to put that friendship aside because, again, you're providing for your family, and this is how you're doing it, and your actions are costing me money. So
Yeah,
That's
it's
that's
and
not easy.
one of the things you mentioned as well is having a contract, and a lot of contractors won't. They're not like exactly what you said. They're not necessarily contract people or
Yeah.
uh, big business people that are on a computer all day, which
Yep.
is completely understandable.
Yep.
So one of the things that we do is we have like a template, we have a scope of work, and we have milestones, and we go over that contract before we sign anything, and
Yeah.
you only get paid once you hit a milestone, and that kind of helps. And even then, you get you're not always on the same page, but
Right.
you want to try to do everything up front.
Yep.
because sometimes even though you want to hit that milestone and he's asking you for money, you almost pay him sometimes. And that was actually a question I was going to ask you. What's the best way for investors to structure a payment? So these new guys coming in, I'm going to flip my house for the first time. They
Yeah.
don't know how to, some of these contracts are like, well, I need 90% down, which we know is illegal, right? But what in PA it's 30% we could take the
I
most.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
It's so, and it's not only is it illegal, that's a huge red flag, right? Somebody
yeah.
asking for that,
Yeah.
like,
Pay me in full. I'll be done in 2 weeks. I'm
yeah,
going to do the whole house, roof, siding. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I mean, if it's, let's say somebody's going to do a whole house flip for you, I would break it up into quarters, and then I would break each quarter down to like this mile, like Jake said, milestones,
Yeah.
and then I'm not about like, some people are like, well, should you fine them if they don't reach it? I'd rather turn it around and be like, hey, here's an incentive if you get it done by this time.
Yes. I would,
You
I
know?
would do that too. We've done that before.
Yeah,
Hey, if you get this project done by this, not not cost, you going cheap on me, still the same quality,
yeah,
better, and you get it done by this time, you could get this much money,
yeah, right.
right? So that extra incentive,
Yeah, and the other thing I do is too is I make sure that there, if I'm like, so let's say I have a contractor going to do a whole house flip, I won't necessarily do it in quarters or thirds. I'll make a nice chunk at the end because they have to have something to work towards at that
well,
finish.
well, that was, yeah, that's another thing. They should probably pay. There should be a bigger chunk at the end instead of only 10% at the end,
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
because they're not gonna come back,
Nope. Right.
right? Or I'm not gonna pay you. I'm gonna pay your final payment, but you still got a week's worth of work
Right.
because we know it's gonna happen.
Right. They won't be back once they get paid.
Yes.
Because a lot of them, they don't know how to bid jobs, right?
Nope.
And so then they get halfway through the job and they realize, all right, we've already got all of it in,
yeah,
and we got half the money. We're only a quarter of the way through the job, and so then they start having to take on other jobs to keep the cash flow moving. And I see it, I get it, I know what's happening, but at the same time, that's why you don't take that guy that says 2,000 for $8,000 worth of work because he has no idea what he's doing, and that's only going to end bad. You know.
yeah. So I remember when I was getting started, Troy, I was listening to Bigger Pockets, and Bigger Pockets was saying like oh, you don't need to know anything about construction. You just need to
Just
get
surround yourself with construction people. You'll be
yeah,
all
Yeah.
right.
realtors. So for people that don't know, which I recommend, you should learn construction and you should learn what things cost. Maybe even just walk around Home Depot every Sunday.
Mm.
Um, what do people do to like learn? How do they find a good contractor? How do they realize if it's a good price? What do they do? What are your
So
rec-
I think the one of the first things you do is you get on these Facebook groups and you say, how much does it cost to paint a house per room per square foot? You can call Carpet Mart and say, how much is it to install your LVP or the tile? They'll give you a number, and you got to start. You start to build that list,
Yep.
and then you say you can call plumbers and other contractors and find out, and you can get pieces of the puzzle like that. Now it's going to be hard to get everything, but when you go to look at this house, and if you're looking in a certain area, like for me, I know that in Reading, I bought properties that I never even saw, but my wholesaler that I was dealing with knew what I bought at, knew about, like I could tell from they got good pictures for me. I knew what it was going to take because I've done a lot of them. So that doing that helps. But initially, when you get started, do what you do what you can, which is get prices on painting, roofing, flooring, gutters, like there, you all that stuff is out there to get, and you start to build that list. And then when you go to look at it, you'd be like, oh, okay, so it's this many square feet. This is about what it's going to cost. That's
yeah,
how you got to get started. But Jake, again, there's the comfort zone thing, then there's the work part of it. And like the networking, to me, I enjoy doing it. But I spend a tremendous amount of time doing it. And it's the same with gathering prices and going to Home Depot early in the morning and look for a contractor. Look, if they're getting there early, they're probably good guys, right? Get there
yeah.
early and get some phone numbers. Don't go there at 9 and expect to get the same quality. It's different.
Yeah.
I
No.
would almost say like managing a real estate business is just networking. Like that's all you're doing is
Yeah,
just calling around, getting different prices, getting
yeah,
money, getting.
yeah.
So if
I
you don't,
spend I spend a lot of time working, getting like right now. I have a piece I want done, and I'm trying to find more painters. So I put it out there, and so I'm getting these in. I'm going to call them. I'm getting prices, and then I put them in my phone because next time I look up painter, it'll be underneath there. You know,
yeah,
but that takes work.
Yeah. Takes work, time. Got a network out there.
Yep,
Yeah. My phone is. I have that all on my phone.
yep,
so you mentioned that you got a lot of your deals from wholesalers and off market,
yeah,
and you're in Pennsylvania.
yep.
Regulations are happening all over the country. They've happened in Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
What are you seeing that's different this year now that regulations, like how are you getting your deals now?
Still through wholesale or wholesaling companies, but we're buying them outright and like wholesaling them. And so I don't know exactly how the rules are. I know some places are still allowing, some title companies are still doing wholesaling, and I think you can still do it if they're connected with a broker.
Mhm.
Yes.
So so in my business in Schuylkill County with Don, we have, I mean, we are wholesaling one right now. Um,
Uh oh.
so yeah,
Well, if you're licensed, Don's a broker, I'm pretty
but
sure, right?
what's that?
Don's a broker, right?
Well, he's a realtor, but we're doing it through a company that has a brokerage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's costing more money for the deal because of
Sure.
that. Um, but more so with the changes, what we're doing a little different. There's less, those deals we're buying in Schuylkill County are cheaper, so it's harder for everybody to make money. So we're doing more wholesales where we buy them and just clean them out, resell them. But we're really looking for more rentals that we're going to keep. But we don't want to throw deals away. So when we see something that comes through one of our leads and we can try and monetize it some way, we still do it. So,
Yeah, yeah. Have
so
you seen competition go down since they've passed any regulations?
I didn't correlate the two of those, but I definitely feel like there's a lot less buyers in the game. I mean, in Schuylkill County for sure, it's things are on market longer, and it just doesn't seem like there's as many people buying. I don't know if it's summertime or whatever, it just seems like it's slowed down. I mean, nationally, right? The inventory is up like 35%. I was just down in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and a realtor there was telling me like their inventory for their area a year ago was 800, now it's 1,800.
Yeah.
And since I'm still connected with people in Chattanooga, they're telling me their inventory is as high as it was in 2018.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
so it's interesting to see those markets that have really slowed. So I invest in Berks County, and we're still seeing stuff with multiple offers, and you know, selling for 50 grand over asking and stuff like that. So it really I feel like real estate really is a micro market situation. You can't base it off of things you see on national media because every market's different, And I see it in Berks County compared to Schuylkill, and then I have connections down in like Montgomery County and how things are just still going crazy down there. So
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block. It really is.
it really is,
Yeah.
and that's why diving into a particular area makes the more you do that, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah.
When I started buying a Schuylkill, I once I bought that first one, I was like, man, something's going on here. So I started driving around to all these little towns, and I'd stop and talk to old ladies on porches, people at Turkey Hill, wherever, and I'd ask them all. When I found out they'd been there for a long time, I'd say, "So what have you seen change in the last couple of years?" And the answer was the same every single time. And they'd get this look in their eye, and they'd be like, "I don't know, but people are moving here from all over the place." And
Hmm.
I thought, that's interesting. So that's kind of, and I still feel like, I mean, Schuylkill County has some of the oldest real estate in the country, but there's a lot of stuff that needs a lot of work. So that's when I started, Jake. When you going back to your question from before of how my buy box changed. When I started buying, I bought places that some of them that were really rough. I bought a place in Reading, a row home for $1,000, but let me tell you, it was I mean, it was the cat. There was cat crap 2 inches thick on the floor.
Uh,
Like it was,
we've
and
been there. We've been
yeah,
there. It's horrible.
it was yeah.
I
The,
I
the
I
brick
hate
wall
cats
was
now.
bowing out a foot and a half. Like there was, I was worried about it collapsing, but for $1,000, I was willing to take that risk.
Yeah.
Now it's
See,
one of my best rentals. I love it.
I used to love cats, and then when I got into real estate and I'm buying all these houses that had just cat urine, my
Yeah,
tenants were sneaking in the cats, destroying the rental properties. I don't want a cat.
yeah,
My
yeah.
daughter wants a cat. You ain't getting a cat. There ain't no way you're getting a cat. Move.
I have two that I don't want,
You know? I just
but
like, yeah,
yeah.
especially on a day like today. It's gonna be
Whew.
100 degrees and you walk into one of them, forget
When
it.
when we cleaned that out, or a company I had cleaned it out, we were a block or two away, and you could smell it coming out the front door. Like
Yep.
it was rough.
I'm done with that.
Troy, for some local insight, like what do you think about the Reading market and what do you think about the Schuylkill market?
So the Reading market, again, I said for years there was no, like zero appreciation. I mean, I may maybe exaggerating. I don't know what it was. It wasn't much, but now it's one of the hottest places around. Like New York and New Jersey are buying it up, just like in Schuylkill. If you go to Schuylkill, talk to any title agent, insurance agent, and they'll tell you 50% of their deals or calls are from New York that are buying. 50%.
Yeah.
Shenandoah went from 4,000 to 8 or 9,000 people in a matter of a few years. Um, so how whether so Reading, I think, is harder to find deals because it's saturated with investors now. So very hard. I mean, I was in probably right before it started to get hot, and I bought like 20 places there. Well, when people were saying, "Oh, why would you buy in Reading?" and then the appreciation started going up, I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, now I'm going to get appreciation on top of this.
Yeah.
Great." You know,
That's a bonus.
yeah. And Schuylkill, what I see is I think it's going to be strong for a long time. There's just so much going on up there, like work wise. There's plenty of work up there. There's a variety of areas. If you want to move, you can move into a little dumpy town, or you can get a beautiful place right outside of town in the country, and it's still one of the most affordable places. I have investor friends like all over the country, and when I tell them the deals that you can get there, they can't even believe it. They would die for a 1% deal. They're
Yeah.
like, they're getting some, they're buying something that brings in 1,500 a month, and they're paying 300,000 for it. Like, and I tell them, well, I just sold one for, we bought one for 40 that we could have kept and rented out for probably 1,200 a month, and they're like, no way. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
you know,
Delete that up.
yeah.
You know.
Now, so about Reading and Schuylkill County, if you're in the little towns, you definitely have to work harder for your money, for sure. Like if you there's definitely, when you're thinking about getting into real estate, first of all, I'm not a proponent for it's for everybody. I don't think it's for everybody. Absolutely not. I hear people all the time when I tell them if I'm in a bit of frustration from something with a tenant, and they'll be, oh, I would never do that. And I just think to myself, yeah, well, I would never do what you're doing. Like you're
Yeah.
going to be doing what you're doing every day till you're 65. I'm not. Like
Yeah. Exactly. I
I'm
heard. I
I'm
heard
very
this on
close.
Instagram. Right? You put this
What's
on
that?
Instagram.
Yeah,
That.
and
Yeah.
I'm very close to basically retiring. Like I'm still gonna I'm never gonna really retire,
Yeah.
but to me the retirement is the time freedom, right? And I've been able to, I do have a lot of that, even though I manage a lot of rentals because I'm not doing everything. You know, um, I really trying to get a grip on my health over the last couple of years, and to me, I need to really focus on that even more. Which I have the time now. Most mornings I can get up and go to the gym in the morning. Um, I mean that alone. I just came back from 4 or 5 days in the mountains with my family. So I'm making more of that kind of stuff happen. Um, yeah, I'm really on the rabbit trail there, but
No, that's awesome. I think that, like, have you seen a difference since you started focusing more on your health and more on balance, I guess?
yeah. So here, the whole
I'm not
thing
a
with the
big balance
balance.
guy. I'm not a
Well,
balance
well.
but
So here's my thing. Here's my thing with balance. You can't be balanced and focused at the same time. Just like there's a guy I follow, Ron Golden. He has. I shared it on our Schuylkill page. You'll have to go look at it. He has the best short description of the whole idea of balance. And he says, there's seasons, just like there's seasons in life. There's seasons where you're going to be focused. Then others where you're going to be more balanced. But you can't be focused and balanced at the same time.
100%.
So now I'm definitely not saying that in order to build a business and be successful, you have to neglect your family. I'm not saying that at all. Um, but there's a lot of other things you can cut out. When I had my business and I had 5 young kids, and what was I supposed to do? Well, you know what I started doing? Getting up earlier. I just got up earlier.
Yep.
And how much you can get extra you can get done if you get up an hour earlier when no one else is blowing up your phone or like that. A lot. Um, but the idea of, I think there's seasons in life where you're focusing on some things. Like I have some people who wanted to come to our meetups and they can't come because they have young kids. I'm like, that's okay. Don't put the pressure on yourself to get there all of a sudden. Like I was at a stage when I started getting back into real estate. My kids were older; they didn't need my attention as much. When you have kids, when they start leaving the nest and you're not carrying that weight anymore. It literally feels like 1,000 pounds off of you, and I never really realized it, but I honestly feel like I'm on vacation all the time because I don't have that weight. I just have to take care of myself and my wife, and um, so yeah, I think people put a lot of undue pressure on themselves to get there fast. And if you have a family and young kids, don't don't trade that time for success. I never did that. I never felt that I'm going to sacrifice my kids for money. And and now, like, I have kids that want to hang out with me, right? Which is weird to me. And I have 6 grandkids already. Like,
Wow.
yeah,
Awesome, congrats.
Yeah.
I'm 50. I'll soon be 55. So
Your kids are pretty busy.
Yeah, they're busy, and they're not. I don't, and two of them haven't started yet. So
Wow, I have
yeah,
none.
yeah. Well, hang on, you will.
Yeah.
But
So do they are your kids involved? Like, I mean, you said they're involved in the business. So do you think it's gonna be like, they're gonna inherit the portfolio and keep driving it forward? What are your thoughts on that? And I don't wanna get too personal with you, but
no, I mean, I'll tell you what I think and what I can. So my oldest daughter worked with us in the business at some point a little bit. My youngest daughter, she handles some of the pieces of the rental for me. But she's going to be moving to, Spartanburg for a while. For her, when she gets married, her husband's going to go to chiropractic school, but she can still do some of that from there and make some money. Um, I'm in the process now of trying to figure out how to pass things off easily. So, putting things in trust and stuff like that to make it easier. Um, my one, da- I told my one daughter, I sent her this thing from Instagram where it says something about instead of paying for your kids to go to college, give them a house. And so I sent that to her, and she's like, "Okay, Dad, I love the idea, but can you start buying in a little nicer area?" So
Yeah, but tell me it won't cash flow as well.
right, exactly. But do I see them going on with it? So like our Good Family Investor group, which is me, Brandon, and Jacob, we're going to continue to grow that. We bought like a lot the first year, and but they so then we spent the next year or so, getting fixed up, getting them rented, and then getting used to managing them as a group, and kind of trying to figure out like responsibilities, who does what. We had some of that defined, but it plays out as it plays out. Um, and I see us doing Yeah, I see us doing like I'm gonna focus more on the real estate. So I'm gonna find more flips for us to get us some cash flow, but also we're gonna keep buying rentals. And so yeah, those two, the two oldest ones, definitely love real estate. Want to continue with that. So they've seen not just only with what we've done, but in their own personal lives, the properties that they've bought because both have own multiple properties as well. They've seen how much equity they built so fast, and they understand that whole part of it. So they will definitely do that. And yeah, like my daughter and son-in-law live out in Ephrata, and so when I got an opportunity to do a flip out there, I basically told him, like, hey, if you want to oversee this, I'll split the profits with you. So I was able to do that, and they were able to make some extra money that way. If my other son stays in Chattanooga, I'm definitely going to be buying stuff. I did buy 6.5 acres down there, but it
yeah.
wasn't really right near him. But if he stays down there, I could see myself, helping to get him started, even if it's just like house hacking. I would encourage him to do that to start, but helping them get started. Um, I just think that that once like the sky's the limit, right? Like I spent 20 years or longer learning a lot of things that if I had somebody like
Yep.
in these meetups or whatever, man, I would have learned so much more instead of learning the hard way, like my son Zach touching the hot stove, right? Like but I don't regret any of that because it's kind of built me into who I am, and those experiences have taught me lots of stuff. Like in the late that first time around when I bought all those properties, I had no idea what I was doing, no clue. And the first few years went great. Tenants were paying everything. Then as I got busier and got more of them, I started slacking off on the vetting tenants and things like that. Next thing you know, people weren't paying, and it snowballed. And I owed taxes, and I couldn't pay them. And they were literally going to go to sheriff's sale on a Monday morning, and I paid it an hour before because I finally got somebody to loan me the money. Like that was crazy to me. But those, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't understand this, and I'm like, how could this happen? Because I have all these properties, all these tenants. Well, if they don't pay, like when I first
That's
started
right.
getting it, when I first started getting in, my mom was like, "Troy, what are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, what if they don't pay their rent? I said, then I go broke. Like, I mean, I need the rent to pay the,
Troy, my mother says the same thing all the
yeah.
time.
Even now I talk to, oh,
Yeah.
Troy, why do you do that? I said, to make money. Why else do you think I'm doing it? So, but yeah, so I've learned through all those experiences up and down, like, and then learning really, and in the construction part of business too, I was always, and in our area, and probably where you guys too, most of your construction companies are a guy with one or two guys, and they're the owner. They work on the job. They run everything. That's normal.
Yeah.
Um, so when my oldest son decided he wanted to get into it, and after the 2008 crash, I was like, I got to do something different, and I wanted to work towards working myself off the job and building so I could build it to a point where he could take it over and not have to go through as many of this, like learn. He'll have already learned the mistakes that I made.
Yeah.
So that's what it took me a few years, and the more I got off the job, the more I realized I would make more money by being off the job. So
Hey, I had a question before because we're
yeah,
gonna have to wrap it up soon. But
yep.
when you partner with an investor,
Mhm.
how do you work that? Did they just front all the money? You
So
decide and
they're all different, but I'll give you some examples. So
yeah.
with the one investor, they find the deal, they get the money, I oversee the whole job, and they stay completely out of
Okay.
it. And then we would split the profit. You know, so
Accordingly.
yeah, I mean it all depends on
It does too, because
project.
I've
Yeah,
done 50-50, sixty
right,
40, 70-30.
right,
Depends on.
yep. Others, let's see. Others, we'd find a property together, and we'd run the numbers together. We split up the responsibilities, and then we check in once a week or more than that, to keep the job moving, and then we'd split it 50-50.
But basically, you do all the construction.
No,
No?
no,
Oh, no,
like
you'll sub it all out, and
yep,
you'll just manage it because you
right.
know.
So some of the pieces, like we did a flip here in Ole with April, and so like if our guys go and do some of the work, our construction company gets paid separate, like just as if
Yes.
we were hiring somebody else. So a lot of people say, "Oh, well, you can do the work yourself, so you can do it cheaper." I'm like, no, it doesn't really work that way.
No.
If I like, because if I'm giving, if I'm giving the flip a break, that means my guys aren't out in making what they could
Sure,
be making
making yes,
elsewhere.
yes. So we do that. That's a problem sometimes. Like if we're doing a flip and then someone wants to do residential work, it's gonna hurt us.
Yeah,
I can't take the guy off of one job to
no.
do this residential job. So we just stopped doing any kind of residential job.
Yeah, the right. The only reason it helps that, and it goes back to Jake's question about having a construction company, is because there's times where the contractor's not finishing the job or not getting a piece done, and I can just send our guys there for a couple of days to get that parts to keep the job going.
Yeah.
Or in certain areas, like I can't find really good guys to do finish work, hanging doors, trim work. Like that's the hardest. Like those kind of things. There's lots of people that can paint and do other stuff. But when you're installing kitchens, bathrooms, trim work, you gotta do it right. Like, and that's the icing on the cake. We've had some guys that were really rough.
Yeah.
So
You open this drawer and it hits this drawer and stuff.
yeah, we had one.
Yeah.
We had one just put trim, like we had a hallway you need to put LVP in and then put baseboard trim. And there were like literally 1 foot pieces of door trim that weren't even cut. They were broken. And it's not like they fit together. Like they would have a broken edge next to a cut edge, 1 foot pieces down the hallway screwed in. I'm like, and my son was so mad. He's like, we're never using that guy again. I'm like, we
No
just know
crap.
he can't do trim. He
Yeah.
can install a lock set.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we use them for showing the apartments sometimes, depending on location, and changing locks or putting lock boxes on.
And I do ask contractors, what are you good at? Don't tell
Yeah.
me everything, you know?
Or ask them, what do they like to do?
Yeah, that's what I ask. What do you
Yeah.
like doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if
What
you ask them what they're good at, that's kind of like, well, I'm good at everything.
So you mentioned that, like, I know you do a lot of partnerships, Troy, and Mike just asked you that, but like how do you structure them? Like, are you usually the one that has the final say if you're partnering with somebody? Like, how do you determine all that? Because I've been in trouble in partnerships. I've had bad partnerships.
Okay. Well, first of all, I I've never liked partnerships. Period. That was one of the that was one of the areas that hurt me, not being open to partnerships. But when I started looking at when you're partnering with somebody for a flip, it's no different than me partnering with somebody to build an addition for them, right? Because I'm entering in a contractual agreement with them. Same with somebody that I'm doing a flip with, and there's a beginning and an end to it. When I say I really don't like doing partnerships, it's the whole idea of forming LLCs. That's like getting married, right?
Mm.
And so even forming that LLC with my boys, even though things are good and everything, like there's potential for things to really go bad, and not just go bad like when the family's involved. So that that can be tough. So there's two different kinds of partnerships, but I think you're asking about like with partnering on a flip or something.
So you're doing like a joint venture. You have the joint
Yeah,
venture thing, or the actual partnership where you have an operating agreement and you're building a
right,
company together.
right. So you're asking more about the joint venture,
Yep, yep.
right?
One
Because
deal at a
you
time.
only partner with your family, really. Like that's where you're building a company together is with your family.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like the joint venture, again, I've done different ones where, um, so like the one with April, it worked out. It works out great for us because she doesn't really want to be involved in any part of the, like I think the one in Oli she came to once. Like I went and looked at it, took pictures. Um, then we get on a phone call and we go over the numbers. Then she does the negotiating, everything, and if we get the deal, then we already have the numbers in place. She finds the money for it, and then hands over the keys basically, and then I just submit the bills and they get paid. So in that situation, she doesn't want to have anything to do with it because she is not a micromanager. Um, then like another partnership where it was like 50-50, um, we both did everything. Now, who had the final say? I mean, we didn't really come to a confrontation ever in over anything big because again we were kind of gifted in different ways. So and we didn't have an official contract either, which that could have gone bad, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
so another one, let's see, I'm trying to think. Uh, like with Don in Schuylkill County when we first started partnering before we formed an LLC, he lived up there, right? So it's an hour and 5 minutes for me to the closest property. So we had again, we would go over it together, but he was the boots on the ground there and would oversee the contractors, um, and then we'd go over things. So yeah, so there's a lot. I guess when it all depends on the situation. I feel like everybody always asks for this. I'd like a contractual agreement. How do you joint venture? And it's kind of like that um, owner financing. There's so many different ways to do it and to make it work out.
Right.
But so I don't think I have a straight answer for you, Jake.
No,
The
but
only way is
that
just
was
get
okay.
started, basically. It
What's
sounds.
that?
You just get started and figure it out along the way, almost.
Yes and no. I mean, you got to have some things lined up early. I mean, I went and all of the ones I've partnered with were people I knew really well, right? So I would if I was partnering with somebody I didn't know that well, like in when we used to do the coaching, one of the people in the group was like finding people who wanted to partner on Facebook that they didn't from another state they didn't know, and I'm like, man, I'd be really then you got to really have all your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
But I would be really leery of that. I mean, it's all relationship based. Like the private money lending, same thing. It's all relationship based. So if it's relationship based first, then it usually works out better. But you still, contracts, how they say fences make good neighbors and contracts, keep friends friends. Like if
Yeah.
you're like people say, well, I don't need a contract because it's my friend. No, you
No,
need a
you do.
contract more so because of that.
Yep.
Yeah. This is the protection for if we get in a disagreement. This is for that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It'll never happen, Jake, because we're good friends. No, you know how when it comes down to money, money is like the divider for everything.
Yeah, and especially if they're just if they're not really in the real estate game,
Yeah,
and they think everything's a home run, or we
yeah,
have a hiccup,
right.
something slows up, and now we got to, we're paying a little bit extra.
Mhm.
Then they start to change.
Yeah,
Oh,
and you know what's one of my pet peeves, where one of the things just kind of irks me is like when people get into anything, but let's say real estate, they get in and they've been doing it a year or two, and now all of a sudden they're selling courses and everything. I'm like, guys, come on, you don't have any idea, like you haven't hit the wave yet. And like they come and how many people do you know that have got into it and man, things, it's not if things are going to go bad, they're going to go bad,
yeah,
and you've got to ride that wave. So longevity in any business is huge to me. Like, but so if you're going to partner with somebody and they've just got into it a couple years ago, but they know everything,
stay away.
yeah, you know what's gonna. I mean, and the thing is, when things go bad, that's when you really find out what people are like. So you know, it's just I'm not again, partnerships aren't for everybody either, and I like limited partnerships that have a beginning and end. But
Yeah.
I'm also involved in some LLCs that are also partnerships, and they're just harder to get out of. But if like with Don, we've been building stuff and we work real well together. But we did a couple of flips before we actually made the LLC, and we've also worked together for I think a year and a half to 2 years before we actually did that. After we had experience working together, so.
Yeah.
Um, but doesn't mean he can't get sick of me. It can happen.
Well, you're
Yeah,
kind of like getting married when you build a business with somebody.
Yeah.
It's like marriage. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yep.
my partner's texting me now 100 times.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're not going to answer. I could tell." I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Be at the job site 5:45. I can't make it tomorrow."
he
So,
should. He doesn't know you're already busy, right?
yeah. Well, I told him I'd be busy till like 11. And
Oh,
he's been texting since I told him that.
okay.
Well, before we wrap up, Troy, do you have any tips and tricks or anything you'd like to leave the audience with?
For give me a specific, like for
Um,
getting into real estate or just what?
I would say, what's your biggest learning experience that you've had? Is there anything you can take away with the 34 years of experience?
I would say getting out there and networking is huge. Being being willing to learn from others and not being isolated when it comes to that, and not thinking you know everything. That's one of the things that gets people in a lot of trouble when you think, "Oh, I got this all figured out." Um, and then the whole idea of partnering to scale, like you can only. This guy told me years ago. The guy who mentored me in construction. He said he's first two things. He said, first of all, business is like a wheelbarrow. You have to push it. Like you have to push it. And then he said, I might be able to hammer 100 nails a day, and my guy working for me maybe 80. So if I get two guys, that's 160. And so the more people you have, the more you can get done.
Mhm.
And not everybody looks at it that way. Some people want to work on the job, just one or two guys their whole life, and they want to do that. That's fine if that's what you want. But if you want to build something bigger, you have to. When you say scale, you automatically are saying less control, whether you like it or not. So if you're a micromanager, it's very difficult to scale, and your growth will be stunted. Um, but scaling require, and it's not that you can't still have good quality, but the more you have, it makes it a little bit harder to control it. So that's tough. That's tough to let go of that sometimes. But um, if you're going to get into real estate, I would look at it as a long term game. If some people getting into instant cash and want to make a lot of money, and yeah, you can do some of that, but the real money is in the long game and owning instead of just flipping.
Or wholesaling. Same thing.
Yeah. And Jake, you have rentals too, right? I know you sold some of them, but
I've been selling everything. I'm repositioning everything now.
yeah.
So And there is something that happens, like, as you get more experience. That's why I asked you that initially, like, how has your buy box changed? Because
Mm,
my buy box has completely changed. Like,
yeah,
what I'm looking to buy now is a lot different from when I started. I'm
yeah,
looking for better assets that are
yep,
easier to manage, that people
right,
wanna live, instead of just, like, people constantly moving out. Hopefully, they stay there a little bit
yeah,
longer, things
hmm,
like that, and I'm looking for more of the appreciation
yep,
now. It all depends on where you're at, but I think if I didn't get started, I wouldn't have figured out what I'm actually looking for. It's like
yeah.
this big continuous journey that you're just constantly learning, and you're learning from other people. But
And with those rentals in the beginning, like I don't like when people look back and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I used to do that, and I don't do that anymore." Like for instance, "Oh, I don't buy any single family homes anymore." Yeah, but that's what you did to get started because you made money. You
yeah,
couldn't jump into a 50 unit right away because you wouldn't know what you were doing. So
That's right.
you can make money on these singles, and that's why I'm like, don't always be looking for the home run. Look for the base hit. You can get a base hit and you get a bunch of base hits and then you get, your next thing you know, you're winning the game, right?
Yep.
And so that's how I look at these deals where you made smaller amounts. If you like, so Mike, you wouldn't do anything, like none of us would do another flip for 10 grand, right?
No,
But at the time
it made us
that
money.
wasn't bad,
Yeah.
right? And it kept things moving, and at the same time you were learning. So it's not something I would look back and say I wouldn't do that again. I mean, I wouldn't mind sinking my teeth into a really big project, but I honestly, I'm a little bored of some of the smaller stuff. But um, it's work for me to say no to stuff right now because I'm trying to reposition. And Jake, I didn't say it, but it's essentially I'm like repositioning and buying assets that, to me, I look at everything now with how much energy and time it's going to take me. Like, so when you look at rentals, some rentals in some areas are a lot more time and energy. So, like the one when I'm looking at the properties I'm really wanting to keep, they're the properties that are the easiest to manage, right? That will appreciate the most. But it has more to do with the time managing them and the turnover, right? So, yeah, so I'm kind of doing the same thing, you know, but I'm not afraid of taking on I one of the things I do buy problem properties with problem tenants. I find that kind of a rush, maybe a challenge.
I
Um,
I used to promote that,
yeah,
yeah, trouble tenants, I'll buy it.
yeah,
I'll
because
throw them out, I'll do whatever you need, you
yeah,
know?
it's been there's always a lot of it is it's a mixed bag, but people will sell their property at a really discounted rate because they're
Yep.
afraid of their tenants.
Yeah,
So
because their tenants are bullying them, right?
yes,
They
yeah,
what they did is they lived in a house originally, then they bought another house, and they said, "You know what? We're gonna be real estate investors. We're gonna keep this as a
yeah,
rental." And
right,
now they haven't paid him in a year. They're telling him, "You're not throwing me out."
yeah,
I said, "I'll buy it,"
yeah,
at
that
big
same.
discount. Yeah.
So I still will buy some of that, but it really depends on how busy I am at the time. And
well, I think the residential real like you made a good point, Troy. A lot of gurus will say like, "Oh, you should try to buy a 50 unit like right off the bat," and
yeah,
stuff, like
It
Grant Cardone type of.
yeah,
But the residential real estate market is the biggest asset class in the world. Like, it's if
yeah,
you find all the equity in the residential real estate market, it's bigger than all stocks, all
yep.
bonds combined.
hmm Well,
Yeah,
when you think about multi units compared to residential, it's really not comparing apples to apples either. But you know, you'll tend to get a better tenant in a single family home than you would in an apartment building.
for sure.
I mean, there's things you deal with in an apartment building, tenants arguing and stuff, and trash out in the hallway, stuff that you won't deal with a single family home.
People
So
smoking weed. Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
But and then they would say, well, yeah, well, you have more roofs to fix. That's true, but or what if one property is vacant, then you're losing. All right, well then let's compare my 30 single units to your 30 unit apartment building. All right, if one of them is empty, I have the other 29 paying. So I'm not saying it's not different, it's not better, right? But some of the arguments don't make sense. And
Well, another point is it's easier to liquidate. Like the single when you're just saying that, 30 single family homes is easier to sell some of them than a
yeah,
30 unit. You only have
Absolutely.
a small pool of buyers for that 30
See, Jake,
unit.
just think, you sold that 20 unit, but maybe you needed enough money that you could have sold 2 single units and you could have kept 18, right?
Yeah, I right now I'm doing a flip where I'm gonna make as much money as I made on that 20 unit building, or
Yeah.
close to it. So
Yeah. Right.
it really just depends on like finding the right deals, providing value. And one of the
Yeah.
things that you said, Troy, is like the reason you partner with people is to get more things done. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's all it is just like
Mhm.
providing more value, getting more things done, improving your community.
Yep.
And that's where you see the money. The money is
Yeah.
just a figure of the value that you create. So
Right. Yep.
yeah.
So
Is there any books or podcasts or anything like that that you'd recommend to the audience?
no,
Surprise.
I probably don't. I mean, I'm reading it's called the Let Them Theory right now by Mel Robbins. Nothing related to real estate, but so no, I don't. I don't honestly. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts or um, read a whole lot about real estate. I talk to a lot of people, and I like to talk to people in different markets about their real estate. And then the other thing is one of the reasons I really connect outside of this area or the areas I work in is because there's a lot of value in getting out and talking to people who are doing it on the other side of the country. Like they just get different perspective. If you like, that's how this is how I explain traveling to people who don't like to leave the United States. I'm like, if you've never worn glasses, like I didn't start wearing glasses till I was 46. Um, but when I put on those reader glasses for the first time, like, wow, like then I realized, wait, I need glasses, right? But it's like when you go to another country, it's the same thing. It gives you a whole different perspective on life and stuff. And so when you get out of your bubble and talk to people from that are investing in another state or whatever, that's when I tell them about the deals you can find. They're like, what? They can't believe it. They tell me what's happening. And I have friends that they live in Denver, invest in Mississippi. Um, I'm sorry, not Mississippi. Doesn't matter. Somewhere in Tennessee, and they bought lots of units there. Did it from a distance, and nobody in their group, nobody there invests in Denver. They can't afford it. Like that's a whole different. Can you imagine living in an area where there's no way of you getting in the market? Like so, you're forced to invest out of state. And here you talk to people who are like, "Oh, I would never do that." Well, it worked for them. They got
Well,
in the right market at the right time and made a killing. So
Tennessee's pretty hot.
it is, but I'm telling you, it's slowed down big time.
Yes. I'm in their groups. I'm in like a Tennessee group, a Florida group, tech, because I like
Yeah,
what you're saying. It's true to get in those other groups and actually see what things are selling for, what they're
yeah.
doing.
Now's
Uh,
the time to buy in Florida or in the next year, man.
I'm buying in Florida right now, so
Yeah.
that's yeah, yeah.
So this guy that mentored me years ago, he would ride the cycle, and so he was a builder, developer, real estate company here, like crazy successful years ago. I mean, when I was in my early 20s, he was like in his early 60s, and he had bought 7 building lots down in Florida when the market dove at one point. Held on to them for like 10 years. Then the market went up. He was probably 65, and then he was like, again, he never really retired. He was like, I just went down there, rented an apartment, started building houses on my lots. And he'd stay down there for a month, come back, and then, he made a killing. He owned all those lots, and then he was selling them at the top of the market. So yeah. So these spots where it's going, is that what you're doing, Jake?
Well, I think you can kind of see when you're paying attention, like what you said, to some of the other markets. You can kind of see what's going on nationally, and you can kind of like Pennsylvania is less cyclical than
For
some of these
sure.
other
Yeah.
markets. Pennsylvania is more insulated, but we
Hmm.
don't get the appreciation like
Right.
some of the other markets. But you can kind of see like if things are going down. I mean, Florida, everyone thinks the grass is greener on the other side. People when the economy is doing really well, people buy second homes there and all that stuff.
Right.
So like it's just a matter of time before it goes back up.
Right.
The landlord tenant laws are really good. So that's some of the stuff that I was seeing, and I'm buying down there. I'm trying to buy a rental property right now just to
Mm.
get a foothold, and then
Yeah.
kind of go from there. But I'd love to be able to go there in the winter and maybe build a house or two, and then come back
Right.
in the summer. It
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah. And like I agree with what you said about like our area. I always say it is. There's not the highs are not too high and the lows are not too low. And
Yeah.
so when you if you look at the national media, you'll get scared. Oh, the property values are dropping. And if you look at the national average home sales, I don't think more than in 2008 and maybe one other year they went down nationally. Not since 1942, maybe twice or three times. But even then, look at your local market where it's at, and ours doesn't really go up too high and doesn't really go down too low, so it's pretty safe. And again, if you're looking at it from the long game, you know, if you happen to buy and it was a little high and now it dropped, you just hang on to it. You hang
Yeah.
on to it long enough, you're still going to win.
Yeah.
So,
I think Pennsylvania is a phenomenal like foundational market to
yeah,
build your business from, and then as long as you have a good foundation, you can kind of try other things from there.
yeah.
Hey,
And depending on where you're at in Pennsylvania, like I personally wouldn't invest in Philly, but I know people who do, and so I hear like it's not investor friendly, right? Then Berks County is what it is, but I've experienced in Schuylkill County a lot more investor friendly, especially in the court system.
Yeah. Well, that's something I want to ask you real quick about Reading. Are you seeing that turn more tenant friendly than investor friendly? I just saw where like
Yeah.
they were trying to pass rent control or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's definitely a lot more tenant friendly.
Yeah.
The judges and everything, totally. They're definitely lean that way. Um, but again, most of the time when I've been in court more in the last couple of years than I have been ever, and once you get to know a couple of the judges and they recognize that you're a good landlord. I mean, but up in Schuylkill County, I had the judge tell the tenant that listen, these guys I've been doing. The judge said, I'm a landlord myself. I've been doing this for over 30 years. He said these two, as Don and I, he says these two are the exception to the rule. He's like you've got yourself good landlords, and you should be thankful. So when you
and
have the
you're
judge telling you that, like, or
Yeah.
when you walk into the courtroom and the judge is like, hey Troy, like that
man, I'd
always
be
helps
happy.
out.
Yeah, that's exciting. And your last name is good.
That's
You
right. So
can't
that
get much
definitely
better than
helps.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Not all
trying to.
landlords are created equally. That's a good point too.
What's that?
Not all landlords are created equally. Not all of them
No,
are good.
no.
No, no.
And again, it's not for everybody. Like, I don't know why, but I'm definitely like, I definitely enjoy being a landlord more than I do a contractor at this stage of my life. You know.
Yeah.
So,
Do you do new
and
construction? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
no, we don't. No. I mean, again, maybe. I mean, I might. Maybe I decide that I'm going to flip a house or build a spec house or something.
Yeah.
The nice thing about that, Mike, for me would be if I'm going to build a spec house is I have no customer to deal with. I can decide everything myself.
Yeah, and that's why we like, the house I'm putting down tomorrow, you'll see all over the
Yeah.
Facebook and stuff, but that's a spec house.
Right.
Customers are totally different, but I'm
Yeah.
guaranteed my money. I always tell
Right.
Jake, I know what I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
And but they weigh you down.
Yeah. They can. Depending on the one customer can you might run into one and be like, okay, I'm not doing that for a
I already
while.
did a few times, I'm like, oh, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's a work order. I'm gonna have to charge you for that.
There you
Troy,
go.
how do people get a hold of you if they have a deal or if they want to connect with you? How do they get a hold of you?
So I would say on social media, good on Instagram. It's I don't know.
I don't know. You're my friend, though. That's how I
Let's
watch your
see.
reels.
Type in Troy,
um,
Pennsylvania.
yeah, it's Troy underscore L underscore good, and then we have good good contracting LLC and good family investors LLC. That's on Instagram. Yeah, I'm on Facebook too, but I'm not really on there too much. Mostly like Instagram, and my personal page for Instagram is basically I just talk about real estate related stuff. I had a social media person for a little while, and they were like, "Troy, you got to clean this up." Nobody, you, everyone's confused when they look at your page. So the good contracting one we keep just to the contracting stuff, and um, so now my personal page I pretty much use it just for real estate related stuff that comes to my mind. So
Yeah.
So everybody listening, if you want to get a hold of Troy, that's your go-to, and we'll have the links in the description. Also, if you have a deal or
Yeah.
you want to talk more to Troy, get a hold of
Sure.
him. You're open to that, right?
Yep. If you, we're still looking to buy anywhere in Berks County and pretty much anywhere in Schuylkill County too. So, just like you guys, we buy cash, we buy fast, and we also partner up with people. So I'm not going to partner up with everybody, but I definitely consider partnerships. So,
Awesome.
yep.
Troy, it's been pleasure. Thank you for coming
Good
on.
talking with you guys. Yeah.
I mean, we could talk forever. We've been
Yeah.
talking for an hour and a half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could go another hour and a half,
You're
probably.
going to have a lot of editing, Jake.
Yeah.
So,
No,
but
we're keeping it. Keeping it
let
all.
me know when your next, Mike. I got to get up to your meetup sometime.
You know what? I stopped doing that.
Oh, did you? Okay. Well,
Yeah,
then I'm not coming.
because I'm like yourself. It gets very boring after a while and
Yeah.
stuff. Me and Jake are putting like an expo together. We're gonna try to do
There you
something
go.
either quarterly
Yeah.
and then do a big show once a year on top of it because
Yeah.
we got to make it more exciting. We want to bring
Yeah.
vendors.
It's really hard to keep that monthly thing going because
It gets stale.
yeah,
Same place. Everything you were saying earlier is
yeah,
how I feel,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
out.
We do, like we're doing one. I think Wednesday we're doing one at a Mexican place from 11 to 1 or whatever. But next month it'll probably be breakfast, and I mean, and it's not even the same week or anything. It can be. It just changes.
Yeah, and I'm gonna start doing that too. I'm just gonna say, hey, I'm gonna be here.
Yeah,
You
just
want to
do
meet?
one.
Let's go talk.
Like somebody said, they're like pop up REI meetings.
Yeah,
Like how cool is that? Like
yeah,
you could just do one anywhere. Like if I'm going, I thought when we went down to Spartanburg, I could just organize one and go there. Like you can do it on social media like so easily.
yeah. You're
So
right. Well,
so
thank you,
yep. Good
Troy.
talking to you guys.
Yeah, because we'll keep talking.
Yeah. All right,
All right.
Mike, you better go talk to your partner.
Yeah, yeah. All right, guys. Thank
All
you,
right.
everybody.
Yep. See
Okay.
ya.
Thank you.
Bye.